Students are given a writing task which relates usually to a specific emotion or experience that they may have had. The very good thing about these tasks is that it does stipulate beneath them that they can make it up. It can be real or imagined, which is excellent because if they haven't ever experienced that situation, they can still come up with something. The best kinds of writing for this will utilise a range of senses, use a variety of adjectives, and also try to ensure that the adjectives are quite ambitious. Use descriptive techniques, so this is things like metaphors, similes, personification, just describing in a very detailed way so that the reader can actually imagine what is being described to them. And finally, it's really important that they use a variety of sentence types and also sentence starters. You don't want to be constantly reading the same first word or same few words unless it's done a couple of times just for effect. So it's something to be very aware of. These are some kind of quick tips just to kind of ensure that you're meeting the criteria. Now, students' technical accuracy is really key to obtaining quite a number of the marks also. If they forget to paragraph, for example, they are very much hindering their mark. They must at least paragraph to some degree, even if it's not perfect paragraphing, it's not quite correct, it's better than not paragraphing at all. The structure that I would recommend for their paragraphing is they should follow tip-tops. So if they change the time, place, topic, person, or speaker, they should be starting a new paragraph. Next we have punctuation. Now punctuation, initially it needs to be accurate, so students need to ensure that they are using accurate punctuation throughout. And if they are capable of doing that, the next step would be to vary their punctuation. So try not to just use full stops and commas, maybe bring in a semicolon or a colon, some brackets perhaps, dashes, you know, the sky's the limit really. But try to ensure with those more obscure pieces of punctuation, they're not thrown everywhere. Okay, they need to be used sparingly to have the effect intended. I will be providing a link later also to support with some revision for the punctuation. Next is the spelling. Now again, needs to be accurate, and again this can be supported through some links in my final slide. Obviously there are limits to this. It is an assessment, they can't be looking at a dictionary, so if they don't know the spelling they don't, but you know, just be aware and try their hardest and proofread would be my recommendation there. Finally, for vocabulary, try not to be too basic with it. They need to try to challenge themselves. Perhaps if you hear them using a word that's a little bit basic, see if they can think of a better one. And this is why it's probably a good idea to make sure they're looking at, you know, dictionaries, thesaurus, things like that in preparation before they actually start the assessment. Some final thoughts that I would like to leave you with are, I would recommend students do the following. They need to limit the people, locations and events in their writing. If there's too much going on, if there's too many characters, if there's too many locations, it becomes very complex and it's not really obtainable within the time limits provided. So they need to limit it to kind of a snapshot moment in what would be a much bigger story. The next point or recommendation that I would offer is to focus into a specific object or person. So for example, you may be doing simply a snapshot moment of a man sitting in a cafe, looking at his cup of tea, thinking about something. Doesn't have to be ridiculously complex or crazy exciting. It just has to be written well, and that's where you would then bring in all the techniques from the previous few slides. I also recommend using past tense because it is the easiest one to maintain, and it does need to be maintained or that will again hinder marks. And using first person would be my recommendation, but I know that some people do prefer third. I think to a degree this one's probably personal preference.